Hi everyone, Keren here from tuppencecoloured.co.uk. Thank you for joining me, and this is what I've been making today. Dies are some of my favourite things to craft with. I had one of the early red Sizzix machines, the kind that you did a handle and you had to kind of press it down, and if you did a lot of die cutting then you got bruises on your hands. Ask me how I know. And then I moved on to a big shot. I've also got a grand caliber, and I've also got a little electronic die cutting machine. Use my dies all the time. I have literally hundreds of them. I don't even want to think about how much money I've spent buying dies over the years. So when I am crafting, sometimes I mix and match my die sets, and I like to have them. I like to have them handy, but I also like to keep them under control, because if you're using a very, very little wafer thin die, it is possible to lose them. Now, normally I keep them stored in something like this when I'm not using them. So this is a little plastic wallet. It fits into a little ring binder. It's got a magnet sheet in it, and it'll hold my dies when I'm not using them. And actually I've got those on the wrong side of the magnet sheet, because only one side is sticky, so we pop them where they belong, and the magnet sheet holds them. And that's great for when I'm not using them. They come, if you buy them from Stampin' Up, they come in a nice little envelope like this, and I store that in the wallet. But when I'm actually using them, I find that these are actually quite cumbersome. They kind of get in my way a bit. So this is what I've done. I have created myself a little folder, and I made it using some bookbinding techniques that I learned because I had a bookbinding kit over Christmas. And it's got a magnet sheet inside, and it holds my dies all in one place when I want to craft with them, and when I'm finished I can just fold it up and I can take it from place to place. Stay with me, show you how I made it. To make my folder, I've taken some chipboard. This is recycled from packaging, and it's about a medium weight, and I've cut 3 pieces that are 8 3/4 by 6 inches, and I've cut 2 pieces, one that is 8 3/4 by ½ an inch, and one that's 8 3/4 by 3/8 of an inch. Those are going to be my spine pieces. I've taken 2 pieces of 12 by 12 designer series paper, and I've cut them in half to give me 4 pieces that are 6 inches wide. I've got some of this. This is Bookcloth. Now, I took up bookbinding as a hobby, so I keep this stuff around. It's not all that easy to get hold of, I have to be quite honest. If you want to find it, I'll put some links down below, but you can make it, and I will put a link to a video that shows you how to make your own bookcloth, and if you want to do that you can. Otherwise you can just use another strip of paper. It needs to be quite strong, and I would think about maybe reinforcing it by ironing some very lightweight iron-on interfacing onto the back of it, just to make it a little bit sturdier. And I have half a dozen very small but very strong magnets, and 3 pieces of magnet sheet. Now again, I get this from eBay. I can put a link down below to where I get it. You can go and have a look for yourself if you like, but if you just search for magnetic sheet. And I've cut these pieces down. I bought A4 sheets, so I just cut them down to widthwise to 5.5 inches. So I've used one full A4 sheet and part of another. These are magnetic only on one side, and just to make sure I don't stick them down the wrong way round, because I'm quite liable to do that, I have gone ahead and I have put some strong red liner tape onto the non-magnetic side. As you can see, I put the magnetic side down now, and now it's stuck to itself, just so that I don't get carried away in the heat of the moment. So those are the materials. I'm going to get started making my folder. So I've gone ahead and glued the narrower spine onto the book cloth and onto two of the folder covers, and I'm going to show you how I did that. So with my book cloth nice and square, and you can see I've already gone a bit wrong there, but never mind, we won't worry too much about that. I'm going to place my ruler up against the edge of the book cloth, and I'm going to draw a line. Now I can either measure in 1/4 inch, and again at a bit of a lower point, and then I can join those lines to make a nice straight line, which I have to be honest, I'm not terribly good at. And then draw that line, or I can use one of these, which I happen to have handy, which is a quilter's square, because it's 1/4 inch on each side. But if you haven't got one of those, you can use just measure it. All right, so now I'm going to place my 1/2 inch wide spine piece up against that line that I just drew as carefully as I can, and I'm going to draw along it, and I'll now place my ruler up against that line, and I'm going to trim away the excess. And I was a little bit frugal when I cut this book cloth, a little bit too frugal. I could have done with it being a couple of inches or so wider, but never mind. Whoops. With my dainty little craft knife, I shall cut away the extra book cloth. So I have some scrap paper. All right, this is just a cheap notebook, loose leaf notebook that I bought at the pound shop. In fact, I think I got about 4 of them at one go, and I'm going to use that to protect my work surface as I glue. And as I get these pages covered in glue, I can just rip them away and put them into the bin bag, which I have by my side. So I'm going to start with my spine piece, and this is ordinary Common or Garden PVA, just happens to be in a nice convenient pot, and I'm going to give this a jolly good coat of PVA. And again, I've cut this piece longer than it needs to be for the purposes of my binder, but it was easier to do that than to mess around with measurements. So I'm going to find that line that I've drawn, which I've now covered up. Doesn't matter, we'll use my ruler and to try and find it, and I'm going to put that in about 1/8 inch from the side and kind of try and get it reasonably centered. It isn't going to matter, but there it is. Press that down. Just grab a wipe here, clean off my steel rule, and I'm just going to close that up. Now I have a nice clean piece of paper to work on. So I'm going to bring in the piece that I previously stuck and bring that in nice and close. Again, trying to find that line that I drew earlier on. So just looking for about 1/8 of an inch just by eye. And I'm going to use my ruler to make sure that it's all lining up nice and straight. That'll do. And my last piece of card, again using the ruler, and I'm going to bring that into the line that I drew previously. And press that down. And a bit more adhesive on the end here. And fold those pieces over. And that is the skeleton of my book. And that hasn't stuck down particularly well. And that is a touch long. Didn't measure that one particularly well, so I'm just going to adjust it slightly. And that is better. And I'm going to grab my bone folder and rub those pieces in, and I can put that on one side and move on to the next steps. I'm going to put the cover paper onto my folder now. I've got a piece of 12 by 12 which I've cut in half to make two pieces that are 6 inches wide by 12 inches. That's longer than I need, but I'm not going to worry too much about that today. I've cut one piece which is 4 1/4 inches wide. That's going to be the piece that goes along the back here. I could have made it wider, but I kind of like the look of having that wide border of book cloth there. Before I do any of that, to save me from getting myself into trouble, I have put down 3 pieces of my very strong tape, and I have somewhere, there they are, they stick to anything metal. I have 6 little skinny magnets. I'm using 6 because I'm going to pile them up one on top of the other, and I'm going to begin by sticking them onto one of my magnet sheets because I want them, I want the polarity to be going in the right direction. And I'm going to take off the backing from this piece of red liner tape that I've gone ahead and stuck onto my card. Now usually, okay, so which is the side that it sticks? It sticks to that side, so I want it, make sure I keep, oops, yeah, I want to make sure I keep that orientation, so I'm just going to kind of pop it down onto the double-sided tape, and then put another one on top, and that is going to stick very nicely, I hope. Yep. So same again. I want one of them. I'm going to find where it is and just pop it into place. Doesn't have to be super exact. And third time. Take the backing off the double-sided tape. And pop that down and put its partner. find some clean pasting paper to pop that down on. Now it does want to curl up. So I'm going to lift it carefully and I'm going to line it up reasonably centered with that line that I drew on the book cloth. As you can see, it's not particularly centered, but that does not matter because I'm going to clear that out of the way just for a second. I'm going to bring in this gadget, which is a 5/8 of an inch gauge, and I'm just going to cut away that paper. Same thing on this side. And again, not 100% necessary, but it does give it a nice finished kind of look. This is not the easiest surface to work on because I'm trying to dodge the tripod as I'm doing this, so I do hope you can see what I'm doing. But, this is just an piece of aluminium that's 5/8 of an inch on a side. I got it in my bookbinding kit. Again, you could just use the edge of a steel rule, that would be absolutely fine. And I'm going to use my cutting board to help me. I'm just going to cut off the corners there, leaving a bit extra. And let's have a bit more glue. I'm just going to fold in these edges. It all down with my bone folder. So that's one. The last job before I put the magnet sheet in is to cover up the spine on the inside. And I've cut myself a couple of pieces of the DSP that are, I think, 2.5. I think I cut them, or was it 2 1/4? Let me check. Yeah, 2.5 by 8 3/4. And once again, out with the glue. And I'm going to get that reasonably centered. Actually, I could have made it a little bit wider, couldn't I? I've covered that up a bit better, but never mind. I've done it now. So, yeah, I would say cut that to 2 3/4. But I'm not going to get upset about it. Right, because I made a mistake and I cut these pieces too narrow, what I've done is I've taken one of the bits of paper that I've sliced off earlier on, and I've cut some right angle, don't want that to happen, start again, and start again. Right, because I cut this piece too narrow, what I did was 3, 2, 1. I cut this bit too narrow, and I was thinking of, do you know what, I'll just live with it, but I decided no, I want to correct it. So what I've done is I've taken one of the off-cut pieces of paper, and I've just cut myself 4 little right-angled triangles out of the paper, and I am just going to stick those into place, just covering that edge up. And okay, it's not an exact match, but you know what, it's going to be a lot less noticeable than a piece of book cloth staring you in the face. All that I've got left to do now is to put the magnet sheet into place. I'm going to add a little bit of liquid adhesive into, well, liquid adhesive is PVA, into the middle of each sheet, and I've already put the red liner tape onto the back of the magnet sheet. I'm using red liner because it is the strongest tape that I have, and I want this to be pretty strong. I'm going to add a little bit of liquid adhesive along the edges, just to give me a little bit of wiggle room when I come to stick this down, because once this is down, I want it to be down. So there's one. There's 2. They do stick together. They can be quite naughty sometimes. So that was one. Here's the next one. And the backing of red liner tape is very static. It clings to everything. So again, a little bit of liquid adhesive. It will give me a little bit of wiggle room, as I've said, and once it dries, it will help give me a good stick. Right, I'm going to lift that up to see where my edges are. And yes, I've got PVA all over the magnet sheet. Doesn't matter, because I can just rub it over with a baby wipe. And there it is. It's finished. It's still a little bit damp around the edges, so it needs a bit of time for the adhesive to set. But I'm very happy with it. I'm really pleased with the way it came out, and you have to look carefully to see where I made those mistakes. It doesn't really show a great deal at all, so I'm quite pleased about that. So that's it for today. Thank you very much for joining me. Come back and see me again sometime soon, because I'll probably have some kind of papercraft project to share with you. But for now, thanks once again for joining me, and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.